The most important level to watch this week is 4,848. This right here is the pivot that will decide if we have some type of a pullback. If you remember from the last video, me referencing a potential pullback could be on the horizon here, and the difference between us continuing to grind higher or just consolidate, kind of like we have the last couple of days. So as you can see from last week, for example, between Monday and Tuesday, we retested this 4,848 level, but we were able to hold above. Sellers attempted to take price back below in order to fill this gap here to show that there was buying exhaustion. However, we did not end up filling this gap. We were unable to stay below at all in terms of the hourly candles, and we were able to go a lot higher afterwards. This is a classic sign of continued buying at higher prices, even though sellers attempted to step in multiple times. This tells me that there's still support, like I just said, at higher prices. And in that case, we did end up going a little bit higher afterwards. However, going forward here, if we were to break back below, especially during the month of February, there is potential opening for a larger pullback to go back down to around that 4,500s, that high 4,500s would be my expectation. But price would need to decisively break back below. So you're going to want to watch this for confirmation. So this pivot right here, super important going forward. And also, if we were to go back down to it, it would actually be a head and shoulders pattern. At the left shoulder here, the head forming right now with this consolidation, and the right shoulder potentially forming around this pivot, which could lead to a lot more downside afterwards. But without going into hypotheticals, just base your bias off of this level. No reason to try and predict in this case when we will go below. In my opinion, we will go below at some point in February. However, the exact timing would be unknown in this case. So it's better to just wait and see if price falls below. Otherwise, as long as we stay above, especially if we're able to go above this minor supply zone right here, then there is more upside potential, at least to around the mid 4,900s before some type of consolidation in the future. So right here in the middle is more so of the neutral zone. Above the supply zone that I just referenced can warrant some more upside. And then, of course, like I just said at the beginning of this video, below 4,848, my pivot here can lead to a lot more downside afterwards. So really, we have three different setups to watch here. So be mindful going into this week. Wherever price is, that can determine where the next setup is as well. So that's the first thing that I wanted to mention in this video. Second thing I want to mention is if we look at the flow here for Nvidia, just from Friday alone, it's still excessively bullish. You can see all of these prints on Nvidia here, just a ton of them. Not only are they sweeps, but in this case, they're puts being sold to open with a short-term expiration. We also saw calls being bought to open. Both of these are super bullish. A call right here for 1.7 million in premium, 1.6 million in premium for another call. Both of these are out the money by quite a bit. And for the February expiration, so just a couple weeks until this expires here, super bullish prints just straight out of the gates. And this is only Friday. If you look back at all the previous days throughout last week, it was still excessively bullish day after day. And as you can see on the chart over here, it's been excessively bullish day after day in terms of the daily candles, and it really hasn't shown any signs of stopping in terms of technicals as well as the flow that I just showed you right here. So in terms of just trade setups for Nvidia, it is super overextended right now. In my opinion, it's probably not smart to hold anything overnight. It certainly is one of those momentum tickers. So intraday setups can definitely be lucrative if done correctly. And going to the 15-minute chart over here, for an intraday setup to basically work in the longs favor, you'd want to see us stay above where the previous high was from over here. So roughly around 600 mid. As long as price can stay above, there is the potential right here for a flag to occur for another breakout. Again, we are super overextended, so I personally wouldn't hold anything overnight, but if we were to retest around the 600 mid level at some point this week, especially early on this week, to complete out the flag here, then there could be another bounce at the very least from over here. You don't want to see it go below if you are someone that's interested in longs though, just because below over here, that could actually turn into a head and shoulders pattern similar to what SPX could eventually do in the month of February, where you see the head over here, the left shoulder and the right shoulder. Same thing here, left shoulder, head, potential right shoulder. But right now it's flagging more so than consolidating like we see here on SPX. But just something to watch for this week, as long as it stays above, kind of similar to that 4848 pivot on SPX. We can stay above 600 mid here. The Nvidia is still in bullish territory, at least in the short term, because again, it is super overextended on the daily, but there's no sign of slowing down in terms of bullish flow lately. And as long as this remains prevalent, then we'll likely see a lot of these dips continue to get bought, especially as long as we stay above 600 mid, like I said here. So something to watch for this week. And also another thing to watch for would be SPY in terms of the dark pool prints and those levels, or at least the corresponding levels for them. If you go to the dark pool levels feature here on Cheddar Flow and scroll down, we had quite a bit of prints on Friday. Not only a 3.4 billion at 487.84, but 3.2 billion at 487.51. So two back-to-back super large prints. Also this 1.2 billion. So basically it's over 4 billion in total around that 487.51 level. Very rare to see this amount of premium, and it wasn't even an OpEx day either. So I'm definitely going to watch this range over here for early this week, especially just because we did close a tad below where this range is. But if we just use this rectangle tool here, and you can see roughly the top of the range was 487.83-ish, 84-ish, so right over here, and then you could draw it down to the 53 level, or about 52, to show where those lower prints were. So this range, super crucial if we can get above, especially early on in this week, and that's more so in the bulls' favor. Again, I'm still waiting for there to be a break above this major supply zone, but for all intents and purposes, if it can stay above where we saw those large prints to end last week, that can certainly be somewhat of a bullish emphasis. If we stay below, though, there can certainly be more downside, at least back to the 4,848 level that I referenced earlier in this video. So I certainly am going to be watching this range because this is a lot of premium within this range. You have about 7-8 billion just in a given day. Super rare to see that amount of premium within a pretty tight range overall in just one day, like I said. So, and if we go back over here, you can see there's quite a bit of premium throughout the rest of the week. Just Friday was the main highlight overall with these 3 or so prints. But if I scroll down over here, you can see a couple 2 billion, similar to the above one. We saw about a 3-cent discrepancy between both of these 2 billion prints. So roughly about 4 billion overall around this 485.30-ish level. And then if you scroll down some more, we saw a 2.8 billion one over here at 483.46. Same thing there with about a 1-cent discrepancy, 1.1 million. For whatever reason this week, instead of all of them being accumulated at one specific spot, there's about a tight range, 1 cent, 3 cent, maybe even 30 cents between those large prints. So it's in your best interest to count all of them together since they're all coming in bulk. But in this case over here, we saw about 4 billion overall as well, around that 483.40 mid level, and then 3.5 billion earlier in the week at 482.40. So quite a bit of premium throughout the entire week. Obviously Friday, like I said, was the highlight, but fairly consistent amounts of premium throughout the whole week overall. And a lot of these prints are actually below the current price that we're at right now, where we closed the weekly at. So going up throughout the week over here, we've been able to stay above a lot of those prints, except of course the ones from Friday, but that can certainly change early on in this week. So that makes it especially important to watch this supply zone here on SPX, because if we can get above this, as crazy as it may sound, I understand it's certainly crazy, and I've been eyeing some type of a short entry for a pullback, but I haven't seen one yet. That's why I haven't pulled the trigger quite yet, and that's also why I have this pivot here to show me the bias and for the market to show me that sellers are willing to step in. But so far, I haven't been shown that sellers are willing to step in yet. And in this case, if it does crack above this tight range over here for this supply zone, we can continue to see even more upside. Again, as crazy as that may sound, I'm only looking for upside in the short term if it does get above this level. But again, we have a lot of dark pool prints below the current price. We're above this key pivot over here that shows bullish bias to the upside, and then a minor supply zone here. If we crack that this week, there can be more upside as well. So and make sure, at least for this week, to keep it more so level based instead of trying to predict the bias of the market or where the market will go. I'm going to be watching both of these levels. We're right in the middle, smack in the middle in this case, between my 4848 level as well as this supply zone here. So in order to warrant a trade setup, I'd like to see a break above the level or this zone here. And in the opposite case, a break down below would warrant some type of a short setup. But other than that, though, as always, appreciate you guys watching this video, and I'll see you next time.